Hello everyone, my name is Uthris and welcome back to Planet Coaster. We are working on a coaster station. It's been a while since we've kind of done one of these kind of projects in the build series, and I figured it was a good time to kind of hop back into it. Not because I wasn't able to build the World of Warcraft Tree of Life or anything like that. I'm not a miserable failure of a creator. Nope, no reason. But yeah. Other than that, we are working on something that I really didn't know what it was until, after building the platform it was sitting on. As you can see, we used a lot of these square pathing tools and set up this huge kind of spiraling staircase thing, and then kind of made this ramp and smooth out some of the boxiness using some slopes and just some more dynamic shapes than just boxes on top of boxes. But then again, everything kind of breaks down into that base formula. And some of you probably know from the title of this video and the thumbnail is that we settled on building a railgun. A railgun is basically a system to launch a projectile using magnetism. And it is a pretty cool little sci-fi build, and we haven't done sci-fi probably in a year, and just so I don't get too rusty on the theme itself, it's always good to kind of break out of your comfort zone, which is of course for me fantasy medieval, and start working on something new that you haven't really done before. And that's what I really enjoy about this build series. And as we go through this, and maybe we'll do some more coaster projects in the future, and of course you guys can always let me know in the comments down below what to build. If you need something specifically for maybe your part, and you might not be able to get the effect that you're looking for, definitely toss it my way and I can see about making something and hopefully save you guys the headache of crafting something yourself. We got an interesting shape. I'm using metal kind of tile pieces here instead of the rough stone, simply because it's a little bit more industrial and we kind of leave some of this behind, and I figured using a slight military green, it's more neutral in color than probably the military green itself, and that's just going to give me the base silhouette of our long kind of rifle barrel. Now this is probably a little bit more in terms of size and the class to be like some sort of orbital railgun or something like that. Definitely not something handheld, and because of that, I figured the coaster station could be kind of placed into the hinge that is connected to this weapon. I do leave one side of it open, and that is to see inside the station from above, because not only do we have to worry about the build from below in Planet Coaster, but from above, because most of the time that is where everyone's camera is anyways. And we're going to be using a lot of this concrete column to rough in the framework for this construction. It's a pretty common building practice that I've kind of fallen into at this point, is building almost like a skeletal framework and then trying to fill in details afterwards. Now, sometimes this can kind of bite you, in the behind, just simply because the details are so slow to add and to copy over to each side that you might not need to do this for a lot of builds. But for something complicated such as a long rifle barrel or something sci-fi-esque, for me it's definitely easier to do this because I have to worry about less at a time, and that's really the ideal. You want to try and just handle exactly what you can, because if you become uncomfortable, you don't like the build, it's going to affect kind of your quality of output, and that's not something that I want to happen, especially since I'm recording these. But it's something for everyone. If you don't enjoy your build and you don't enjoy the process that it's following, then it can become a bit of a chore, and then you kind of never finish it, and that's not good for us in this build series. So we have the rough framework of the barrel, and this is kind of a common sci-fi look to a railgun, right? Kind of this upper rail and this lower rail with a few connection points going along the length of the barrel. I could add a lot of VFX kind of effects through here, get this all electrocuted and light up when the coaster goes down the track. I thought about doing that, but really that's a little bit more excessive than what I wanted to do for this simple build. However, it will be on the workshop, and you guys will be able to download it and add it into your park. And if you want to try and time out the VFX stuff and get that working, you're definitely more than welcome to. It's kind of why I enjoyed building any coaster station for you guys. It's a good opportunity for you guys to kind of take a build, edit it, throw it into your park, make something cool out of it, and then maybe share it to me on Twitter or our new Discord server, which is online. And you guys can join now, by the way. I should have probably started with that announcement than waiting until about halfway through the speed build. But yes, the Discord server, that is online, since I'm on the subject. And the link to that is going to be in the description down below as well. So feel free to join, share your builds there, hang out, talk to me, and maybe play some video games with the rest of us in the community, and just chill. At this point, the framework of the barrel is kind of set in stone per se, or concrete in this case, and going through deleting all the metalwork that is left behind, because this whole barrel is going to be more of a freeform gridless structure, because it's got a lot of angles to it, it's got a lot of slopes, intricate details, and whenever you have that, the grid just ends up kind of going against you. So gridless building is something that I probably enjoy the most. It can be the slowest way to build, of course, because plopping down some roof tiles and some floor walls and you get yourself a structure is really nice and all, but this is where, to me, Planet Coaster shines and shows and comes into its own differently than, say, any creative game that I've played since. The gridless building system and the ability to intersect these pieces in any way, shape, or direction is just so powerful. And something that a lot of us probably wanted, say, during the Minecraft days, and working off the grid would be great for other creative games, such as maybe like Space Engineers, Medieval Engineers. We were starting to get kind of that merging grid mechanics, and a hybrid system could work, but really gridless systems, getting these things to intertwine, really the best solution in my opinion. Just give me the power to create exactly what I want, and let me deal with the consequences of using 300,000 parts in a single park. But yeah, this is the upper shell of the barrel. I'm trying to mix up the textures a little bit. We're going to go with a kind of the lighter concrete for the kind of structural rail supporting this, and then darker brickwork to do the undertone in like the heavier plates that are protecting the barrel, or maybe being used to hold the electrical charge down the pipeline there. And we are using some different molding at the top just for spots of color and a different texture. Originally I was going to make all of this barrel completely out of smaller, there's not a whole bunch of small objects in Planet Coaster, but smaller kind of gridless items to really get a bunch of layers into this. However, these are kind of an asymmetrical thing. They are also part count heavy to do, and if I wanted this to be a blueprint, then that kind of had to be thrown out the window, simply due to the complexity, the amount of time, and really it just probably wasn't going to be worth it. At this point, we kind of realized that, and we start switching over to sci-fi parts. I actually kind of forgot a lot of this stuff existed and where they were in the menus. I think that just shows how long it's been since we worked on our sci-fi park, but we do get the hang of it. We do find some of these things, and it's a good idea to just kind of start throwing in metallic surfaces to this militaristic weapon here and see kind of what comes out of it, you know, trying different solutions for things. Ended up using this fence for like little flanges hanging off the side. Maybe these are kind of conductors along the barrel. And really, this part of the build process is a lot of kind of storytelling or things and world building that you try to make sense of yourself. And that's why I enjoy creative games. It's a great outlet for people like us who do enjoy Planet Coaster a lot to experiment, tell our own stories, and just come up with the variations that we really want to see in a lot of video games. Across the top and backside though here, we're using a lot of the larger sci-fi pieces. Now this is one, to keep the part count down, two, to add a lot of superficial detail that I might not be able to get with these small kind of build methods here in the barrel. We also get rid of the track supports along the barrel, and I'm kind of replacing that with heavier piping, these heavy industrial support columns coming out of the ground. And for those of you who think that this thing might be able to raise and lower, in theory, that's kind of how it is built. I just see those hinges and things to just be able to be extended out and support the barrel the whole length. Keep it rigid and from buckling from the sheer power of it all, right? Because this is such a huge weaponized thing that it just feels like it needs to be bulky in a lot of areas. So that's kind of what we're doing at this point. Bulking it up, adding some details across the top. Maybe those are like energy packs on the top of the barrel to conduct more electricity down. And then we just kind of start working on the more aiming mechanism. So this is the hinge that the gun kind of pivots on to raise up and down. And we do have this sliced open, so this side isn't complete. It's more or less just kind of a cutaway, which I thought was an interesting thing to do. Doing a cutaway would mean that we kind of have flexibility for the interior. We don't have to necessarily worry about getting everything looking like it's working necessarily. We can just simply seal this off with kind of this smooth metallic surface and get that looking well. In hindsight, I could have used art shapes for this side. I kind of forgot for some reason, as if I've never used an art shape before. But we do kind of fix that on the back side of this thing. We do have kind of an odd spot where the gun kind of attaches to this mechanism. I don't really particularly enjoy this solution, so we end up kind of deleting it eventually. But you know, I thought maybe the gun should flange out and meet kind of the ball bearing rotary object that is attached to the body here. But that gets changed, and that's the thing. Like, I could cut out a lot of this stuff, but as I kind of always say, is I enjoy talking through this process and wanting to get across that this isn't always right on the first go. You know, we're all getting better at Planet Coaster. We're all kind of learning together and sharing techniques, and that is kind of what I want to get across. To me, that is the crux of creative games and building a community around them, is that we kind of grow together like this. And hopefully, you know, you can learn techniques from me, I can learn techniques from you, and we just get better and better and better as we just progress forward here. The slopes, I've decided to make almost like energy packs that are just attached, large cylindrical kind of energy storage containers here, and decided to do some off-camera building as well. So we have the whole backside done, which we'll probably take a look at a little bit more closely during the real-time section of this at the end of the episode. But it's essentially a bunch of orbital cannons lined up, and the barrels are, I guess lore-wise, would be considered to be large power conduits, things that would like charge up while, you know, the coaster is sitting on its delay on the track, which you guys can change to any sort of delay. You can even add doors and all those VFX stuff that we were talking about earlier. But you know, getting that kind of stuff in so you guys can use that from the workshop, super important. Getting the main structure kind of copied over to the opposite side of the barrel. This is kind of the time-consuming stuff because we've essentially finished one side already. And all right, here is the finished railgun that is going to be on the workshop. It is a launch coaster variant with a full queue line kind of set out here. Now the queue line, usually with these, I like to build kind of coverings. However, I think that would have taken away from the building a little bit. So for once, we do not do that, and instead just opt for a nice kind of low wall going up through all these different tiers, and then they make their way into the coaster. We get a lot of little sci-fi things, but also we keep some of that plain green wall on this lower bit, because I just figured having some places with less detail is fine, because we have such a detailed structure that if I made this area as detailed as all of this, it would look too repetitive. There wouldn't be anything to break it up, and I think it's a good balance thing to do, to have kind of a low detailed area in the foreground, high detailed area in the background, or vice versa. So you can do high detail in the foreground and low detail in the background. Either way, it just gives you a good little bit of a flow of things and without getting overwhelmed visually. So that is why we kind of do that. We have the barrel there going across, which looks really cool looking down like this. We have the orbital cannons on the back side here, and also on this far side here. And this is a little bit more of what the mechanics would look like if the queue line wasn't necessarily cutting that away. You get a lot more of this bearing shape being revealed with a lot of these more power conduit things as well. The cutaway is okay. I think it's a little probably basic, and I probably could have, you know, maybe gone into a little bit more detail with it. However, it's fine. From above, you know, you can kind of see into there. You can see when the coaster launches out of the tube, and to me, that's really fun to see. I want people to interact with the building, and I want to see how that's happening without necessarily going down to ground level. If we take a look at this thing test, it goes pretty quick. You guys can always add more rails onto it. But it launches out basically at its maximum acceleration, and then we are basically throwing coasters down across the way. So, you know, if you don't even want to build a coaster onto this, you just want to have a giant gun, shoot your park guest, be my guest, this will accomplish that feat. And yeah, so that's it with today's speed build and kind of one-off build structure. If you guys are enjoying this kind of stuff, definitely subscribe to my channel for more creative videos such as this. Hit that like button, it really helps us out as we make content here on YouTube. You can join our Discord community that is new, and that link will be in the description down below. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next build, and have a good week.